Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Vader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to catch up with Edward Kuo. He is the executive director of the CVSN, which is the Commercial Vehicle Solutions Network. Now, this is the distribution association for folks that are in the kind of truck parts and heavy-duty commercial parts industry. And, I've run across their industry, spent a little time with the previous association executive, had an opportunity to speak at a couple of their meetings early on in my career. So I knew a little bit, but not a ton about that vertical market. And, we just had a great conversation really about, his journey in that association, really starting out in association management in a completely separate vertical, and then coming into the truck parts side and spending a long time in that area, and then ultimately taking over the executive director of CVSN a couple of years ago. And, he's got some big ideas for that association. And, it's kind of like a previous guest I had on here talking about, the gumball machine is full of ideas, but you can only get one gumball out at a time. And having the patience and trying to meter in some of these solutions here. But, I think one of the big superpowers that he touched on is this relationship building and really not viewing anyone as a direct competitor, more as an associate, and how can we share some ideas and share knowledge in a way that really lifts all boats. How do we improve the association or improve the vertical market, the industry, and lift all the companies up with us? That's really what his role is, and that's where he sees his role as this association director. So anyway, thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Edward, and I hope you do too. This episode is brought to you by Connected Peers, an online peer collaboration platform for distribution professionals. Let's face it, most managers don't have the opportunity to speak with their industry peers about common challenges in their departments. Sure, they might see each other at an annual conference, but that hardly provides any real relationship building or continuity. What if there was a forum to solve challenges with those in your same role? Well, now there is. The concept is simple. Purchasing managers meeting with purchasing managers, training managers meeting with training managers, marketing managers meeting with marketing managers. You get the idea. There are 10 unique role-based communities to choose from. These are monthly facilitated meetings, all via Zoom. Ask questions and receive feedback from people who understand the challenges of your position. Isn't it time that you quit going it alone? To learn more and find your peers, visit us at www.connectedpeers.com. All right, Edward. Hey, welcome to Distribution Talk. Hey, thanks for taking the time to be with me today.
Absolutely. Excited to have a few moments to talk.
Yeah, it's always it's fun to catch up a little bit, learn a little bit more about you. And as I was mentioning earlier, it's great for, the members to get a chance to, see who you are. They see your name up there a lot. And it's like, hey, let's figure out who this guy really is.
Well, hopefully they get to hear the backstory behind me. But most of them have met me over the years, and we have a lot of great relationships in our industry.
Sure. Let's go ahead and take a little trip down memory lane. How did you get started, in the truck parts, that whole industry, and then we'll dive into the association stuff. But let's talk about, the truck parts industry first.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting. People ask about my past, and I'm at a stage in life where I have two boys who are now in college. And when I look at them, I'm wondering, well, where will they be in 30 years? Right? So I look back on my career and I'm like, well, how did I get to where I am? I graduated from the University of Virginia with a business degree, and most of my friends wound up on Wall Street or in some financial firm somewhere and making a ton of money and super successful folks. So that was kind of the bar that was set, but that was never really my path. So after kind of putzing around trying to find the right first job, I wound up getting a job with one of my friend's parents. And this is kind of the start of how relationships lead to careers. But She gave me my first job as a marketing person for a trade association. And this
Okay.
happened to be a trade association that was doing manufacturing of or supporting manufacturers in the printing and publishing industry. So
Okay.
all of those big presses and everything, that's who this association represented. And I had no idea what an association was. I just wanted a job. It was in
Yeah.
Northern Virginia at the time, and she gave me the opportunity. I walked in the door the first day, and she said, "Well, Edward, you're going to be in charge of our website." And this is obviously dating myself way
Mm-hmm.
back, but I was like,
Yeah.
what's a website? I mean, here I am, a kid out of college. I didn't even know what a website was,
Sure.
but they
Sure.
were like, yeah, this is kind of what it is. And I think due to my age, they gave me all the technology projects along with the marketing projects. A few years later, I switched to another association, and that happened to be in the automotive industry,
Mm-hmm.
again at a trade association. And I wound up taking over the heavy duty part of that. That means all the big trucks and the
Yeah.
members that represented that industry. I wound up representing them along with the technology side of the industry. So one thing led to another, and there I was, kind of starting down my career path.
Yeah, it is. It is funny how we do kind of wind up in these career paths. I started out my family business. I was kind of born into it, and jumped into the distribution and construction supply world, and that was kind of going to be my career. Maybe 20 years down the line, I said, you know what? Maybe I don't really want to be in my family business any longer. And so it is interesting, how people will cross your path and kind of give you that insight. It's like, hey, maybe that would be interesting, and maybe I'll kind of see what that has to offer.
I think people just have to be able to flex and move with
Yeah.
whatever direction the world takes them, life takes them. And I just happened to run into some great opportunities along the way. More importantly, making great relationships that led to great opportunities along the way. And I've had many opportunities to change industries or change jobs over the years.
Hmm.
And I've always said my number one goal is to stay in the industry that I grew up in because of those relationships. And that is just too valuable to leave behind.
Totally agree. Oh yeah. I mean, I think about, the relationships that I built, gosh, in my, early 20s in the distribution industry, and some of the association execs I'd met and whatnot. It was just natural for me to stay in this, and continue doing this. Now, I would say that, it's morphed over the years for sure, and I think new things come along, and new exciting things come along. I mean, who would have known that I would have decided to host a podcast? I didn't even know what that was about 5 years ago or so. I said, I don't think that's going to happen. That's not me. All of a sudden, this is something I absolutely love doing. So I think the flexibility and the ability to kind of look at opportunities and say, well, why not? Not the why, but it's more the why not? Why not give that a shot? If it sounds interesting. So Edward, if you could tell me a little bit about that first stint in the HD Exchange, the big heavy duty truck parts association. What were the things you learned about associations, association management, members, and trying to make people happy? What did you gain out of that? I mean, you spent a lot of time in that particular association, yes?
Yeah, I realize that associations aren't the first line of business. You have other parts of the business, sales and operations, but at the end of the day, the associations play a very important role to the overall success of an industry. So as a result, I like to use the word co-opetition when I talk about why associations exist. And going back to my roots in Virginia, I always refer to NASCAR as my example. NASCAR racers all want to win the races that they're in. Their teams are cutthroat. They do everything to the best of their abilities. They're intense.
Mm-hmm.
But they also realized over the years that, if I work with this other team, maybe my aerodynamics package will be better. Maybe my engine setup will be better for this particular track.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they get to the race day, they say, maybe we ought to draft with this team that happens to be my least favorite person in the world, but they happen to be going fast and they happen to be right in front of me. So they wind up saying, hey, let's work together. A lot of times competitors need to work together because with both of them being successful or multiple people being successful, that really elevates the entire industry to be better. And when the entire industry is better, everyone succeeds and winds up being more profitable or more successful, or whatever their goal is, they wind up reaching that goal easier and faster. And that is really essentially the purpose of the association.
Oh, it's a great analogy, Edward. I mean, I just, really thinking about that. Yes, there are a lot of different teams on that track, but you can help each other, sometimes overtly, sometimes, as a just a matter of happenstance, that you can help each other out. But no, I think you're right. You kind of bring up an interesting point about how members interact with one another and how they view one another in an association. I think there is an inherent, I guess, fear of others until they get used to it, until they get used to that collaboration.
Well, I like to point out that most of the areas that associations work in, they bring these competitors together, but they're in areas that are not really competitive areas. These are areas that everyone needs help with. Our major pillars at CVSN focus around legislative issues that focus on elevating or helping out the entire industry. In terms of industry awareness, I love how the Dairy Council did their Milk, It Does the Body Good campaign, because that really made everybody realize, hey, maybe we ought to drink more milk because it does the body good.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another area. Education and training, everybody needs it. It doesn't need to be specialized to everybody. And it almost makes it harder to make training work when you're having to specialize everything. There's just that baseline of training that associations can bring to an industry a lot easier. And then the last area is technology. Technology is just where all innovation happens now.
Yeah.
And without technology, people will get lost and get left behind. What we do as an association is really not only do we make people aware of what's going on, but we also help them understand what's successful. And then, more importantly, when you have multiple people on the same platform or doing similar things where these systems can talk to each other better, everybody's going to benefit from that, So whether it's just receiving orders, something as basic as that, or whether it's organizing a warehouse, everything that happens with technology needs to be done in cooperation with at least one other trading partner, or else it's just not going to be effective. So these are the areas that associations work with their members to bring benefit without getting into the way of that everyday competition that our members have to deal with, whether it's in their local region or in the industry.
It's interesting that you point out technology, and I know that technology has been a very common thread throughout your career. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Maybe you just got thrust into it and you just have to deal with it. But I think that that's really interesting. You made a point about a common technology rolling through a particular vertical market or an association. I'm tending to see that more and more, especially in maybe a smaller, more tightly held association, that you will see one particular ERP, for example, just tend to run the table.
Yeah, no doubt. Everybody has their specialized technologies that have been successful over the years. What I have noticed is in 20 years of this, there are certain people that work better together, and that makes their product that much better, that leads to better innovation and everything. What I found rather interesting over the last 5 years is that, I've been in the truck parts distribution industry my entire career. But when I start looking beyond truck parts, I see many, 50 to 100 other distribution industries that are going through the exact same conversation that I've had with my members for years. So, yes, there are some business systems that are common throughout distribution, but I'm very active with the National Association of Warehouse Distributors also, and I hear the problems that their members are having, and I'm like, hey, we can learn from each other in that arena also. So it might not be specific to everything that we do. There's cores in our industry that are really impossible, but in other industries, you have to deal with pricing, and everyone has difficult pricing
For
challenges.
sure. Yeah.
People come up with the most bizarre ways to handle those things, and these systems have to catch it. So, if they're good at catching these problems in one industry, they're going to be good at in multiple industries too.
Very true. I mean, I think that was one of the biggest eye openers for me when I, left my family business, my family industry, and, started working with multiple different vertical markets is the commonalities. Really started seeing commonalities and common challenges, big macro challenges like inventory management, for example, or, sales compensation. That's a big macro challenge. And, those types of things. I started seeing that it wasn't specific to, the solutions weren't specific to an industry. They really could be broadly applied. And I think that's, really one of the things you gain by other counterparts in your industry, other association executives, sharing ideas amongst one another.
Yeah, everyone overuses the word innovation, but I like to joke sometimes. Innovation is just stealing someone else's really good idea and then making a tweak so it fits you even better. And that winds up being, hey, we got some more innovation. But I mean, if you're not doing that, if you're not always seeing what's available and then making it slightly better for yourself, then you're not doing your company justice, and you're not going to get better. And the converse to that is, other companies will outpace you, and you'll wind up suffering, whether it's loss of sales or loss of employees or just loss of the business all around, so you have to stay on that forefront of technology to be successful.
So taking a step over towards the member side, and again, you've been around, the heavy duty truck parts and the commercial vehicle world for a very long time. Sorry to date you there, but what are the common challenges that you're seeing right now? I mean, the big stuff that, your members are saying, hey, Edward, I need help with this. What can we do about that?
If you asked me a month ago, I would be touting that recruiting and retaining employees is absolutely number one on the list, right? Everyone wants to go to what sounds like the coolest jobs out there with technology, but ultimately that's just a technology front to a warehouse back end, and it's still another warehouse, right? And being in our industry, commercial vehicles doesn't always sound initially like the coolest place to be for a college educated or a high school graduate, whoever it is coming into the workforce. But ultimately, when you start touting the reasons why you work, why do you work? Well, is it steady pace employment? Is it reliable employment? Is it an atmosphere that's family friendly? Are you enjoying that role that you have? Do you have room for growth? Is there, these are all things that people want. Company aside, that's what you want from your job. And when you start looking at what distribution industries have in general and have been offering a very large part of the population, but very quietly doing that, you start realizing, this is a really good industry distribution in general is a great industry to get into. And we really need to tout that a little bit better because it's not all about fixing an engine or moving boxes. There's so many jobs that are related to distribution. So I would say, the biggest challenge that we have right now is putting ourselves in a spot that makes us compete for that type of employee. And that's what we're looking for. If you asked me yesterday, what's the biggest challenge? I think it has to be the economy because absolutely nobody knows where it's going to go. I mean, some economists tell me that you're going to see a little jump at the end of this year. Others are saying, nothing's going to happen till after the election. Nobody knows. Everyone's making stuff up as we go. And it really makes for a tough business environment where all you want to know is about where we're going to be so we can just make decisions and move forward. So That's what I would say would be the biggest challenges.
I'll tell you, Edward, I mean, it's funny that you bring up the economy and especially the election. So I've had these discussions with people the last week. I mean, it was just a huge discussion. I manage multiple groups, you facilitate multiple groups, and we talk about, where are these industries going? And some industries, I mean, literally they've fallen off a cliff, and they don't really know why, and they'll blame interest rates and they'll blame, the economy, but then, well, it's an election year. I hate that excuse. I really do. That just drives me absolutely crazy. I know I'm going to get myself in trouble with this, but I think it is such a manufactured excuse. It has no basis in fact. I mean, maybe it has some historical basis, but it just drives me crazy. And if you speaking of the economists, like the Bolio twins, they'll say, hey, look, the economy is cyclical. It doesn't really matter who's in the White House and whatnot. But we seem to have this general malaise every 4 years right about now. And it's like, come on, can we just stop doing this? Anyway, that just drives me crazy.
I think if you kind of expand on that a little bit, sometimes I feel like companies have, and whether it's over the last 20 years, it's funny that I say this because I'm a numbers guy, I'm a technology guy through and through. But I feel like the weight that companies put on 1% is just tremendous. It's like, oh no, the economy is going to go down 2 or 3%. We have to cut back all spending. We have to cut back all purchases,
Right.
And it just seems like there's a little bit of an overreaction that takes place on the numbers as opposed to, I'm not going to say it was this way back in the old days, but I'd rather people spend that extra effort on relationships and the people, whether it's their own people, their own employees, or whether it's their customers or their vendors. If you spend a little bit more time of your and energy on that and forget that 1%, and this is probably why I'm not a CEO of a big company, right? But if you forget that 1% for a second, you start realizing this is a people business. You treat your people right, you treat your partners right, then all of a sudden business is going to grow a whole lot more than waiting for that turn, the uptick or the downtick in the economy. And it's not a game of playing those numbers. It's a game about having the right people to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I would absolutely agree. I literally got off a coaching call with a CEO that I've been working with for almost a decade now. And, there's a downturn in his industry. And, I'm like, man, can we just, and I think to your point, relationship our way out of this problem. And I think that's really where it comes down to is just double down on that relationship building. And whether it's the customers or you're working internally with your people or your suppliers for that matter, let's double down right now because I think that there still is more business than we had before. It's just we have to double down on the relationships to go get it. I think that's a silver bullet myself.
Yeah, we have a big trading event that's coming up in a couple of weeks, and we're excited about it. We're launching new areas of learning, and there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes. But when I talk to the owners out there and to companies, they're like, well, it's a down industry, right? Everything's a little down. I can't afford to have my salespeople on the road. And I'm like, yeah, but what's the problem here? If they're actually learning and getting better when it's slow, because they're not going to have the time to do it when it's not slow. And the other problem that you're going to run across is, if you're not investing in your people, they're going to leave and you're going to wind up having less people to deal with. So you're kind of running yourself into the ground if you don't take those little bit extra time to kind of support your own people.
Yeah, I go back to, I wish I could remember who talked to me about this, but you can't cost cut your way to a successful company, and it just drives me, it's like you can't pencil whip something so much and expect it to all of a sudden turn you around. I think it's just a death spiral that you go into, that mentality where, well, I've got to save a little bit of expense. And so I'm going to, it's like not giving him a gas card, a salesperson a gas card, it's like, well, they've been spending too much on fuel. Oh, what? Seeing their customers? Wow, you're going to cut that? Are you out of your mind? I mean, so sometimes I think you're right that there is this almost a fear-based reaction.
Yeah. I think all companies need to figure out, well, what's this next year really going to look like?
Yeah.
And what do we need to do to get through this? Yeah, we might have a loss of 2% this year or 5%, and no one wants that to happen. But it's also coming off of 2, 3 years of much more than 5% growth,
Mhm.
post COVID. And then that's coming off of some pretty negative numbers during COVID. It's the cycle that you go through, but you just can't overreact to
Right.
what's going on a day-to-day basis.
So you mentioned, some the training event that you have coming up, and training and education, is really something that you, as an association, the value proposition that you can provide to your members. But in the industry, we also have the buying group side. That's kind of another. Could you kind of contrast? Where do you all fit and they fit?
Yeah, that's always a great question. When I came onto this role, the first two phone calls I made were to the two buying groups or marketing groups in our industry. They're good friends of mine, and I wanted to make it very clear that we're friends, we're not competitors.
Right.
I want to know where their line stops because they have to do whatever they can to make their members better. And
Hmm.
where does it go to an industry role of making the entire industry better? So finding that line, and it's a moving target, but
Sure.
finding that line is very critical to the success of the association. And it's also critical to the success of the marketing group or the buying group.
Hmm. Hmm.
If they're spending way too much time with an education side of their business, they kind of might lose focus on why they exist in the first place, which is
Hmm.
building those relationships with vendors and making that stronger and tying them to the membership in terms of purchasing. I believe a buying group's number one purpose is buying stuff, hence the name, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many things that these companies can do to make that process better for the partners, make it better for the members, and then just kind of bringing opportunities to the table. So if you get too far from that major focus,
Hmm.
you're putting in a lot of resources that, your membership might not need or want. So there's a fine line that they have to battle with. And then,
Hmm.
from my perspective, I'm trying to bring the entire industry together. And, that includes both of the buying groups that are big players. It includes the big independents that are out there, bringing together the public companies, the big suppliers. There's a lot of people we want to bring into a room and say, hey, what is that key element that makes us as an association valuable to you? And sometimes it's a legislative issue,
Right.
and we all are battling. A lot of us are battling the whole Right to Repair Act right now in our
Hmm.
industry, and that's a very big issue because it's the livelihood of everyone in our industry that's on the table. So does that become an area that's clearly on the CVSN association side? Yes. So
Hmm.
what's inbounds, what's out of bounds? To me, it's important just to stay in good communication with the buying groups in the industry. They're both on my board of directors, so we're very aware of what each other are doing. And we want to make sure that, we're putting our resources to be as effective as possible so our members can all grow and the industry as a whole can grow.
Edward, that's really unique. Something you just said, having the leadership of the buying group on your board of directors. I have not seen that in any other trade association that I know. Do you know a couple others, a couple of your colleagues out there that have them on the board? Because I've never seen that before.
Well, I got to be honest. I mean, I've been at this for less than 2 years, and then trying to come up with new solutions and
Yeah.
benefits to our members has really been my focus. So honestly, I couldn't tell you whether there are other
Yeah. Yeah.
associations that
I
do
don't
it.
know.
To me, it's just relationships. The more relationships you can develop, my board of directors, they're a wonderful group of people.
Yeah.
Their focus is coming up with direction and vision and ideas that might make sense for the association going forward. So I don't see why the buying group leaders wouldn't belong in that. The board's also responsible for, having a sphere of influence that can bring more people to the table. And who has those best relationships? Well, it's the buying groups. So, to me, they absolutely belong. I don't see why they wouldn't,
Hmm.
So there's an old school thought that you have very distinct type of people that need to be on a board of directors. I just want good, smart people who are energetic and are willing to go out of their way to help us get better.
The more you say it, the more it makes perfect sense, and I think it comes back to when associations view themselves as competitors from the buying groups. And that's where they would probably have a difficulty having those folks on the board. But I absolutely believe that just makes too much sense to me that it is a huge part of the industry. And I know those who have been around the association game a long time, and maybe they've been the head of their association for a couple decades, they might still view the buying groups as the outsiders or the new kids on the block, and they don't really want to bring them into the fold. But boy, it just makes too much sense to me. Bringing them in, they've got, as you said, they've got both sides of the fence. They're the manufacturer and the distributor relationship, bridging those together and trying to bring those two sides together. And in those board meetings, you're going to hear the issues. You are going to hear the issues, not only that you have heard, legislative side, which is clearly in your camp over there, maybe educational, but you're going to hear other issues. So yeah, I think it's absolutely a brilliant move. And I've got to go find out how many of your colleagues out there, I'm going to start polling these guys and find out how many of them have done this, because that just makes too much sense to me.
Yeah, you bring up competition, for associations. And yeah, we have a few friendly associations that we work with carefully
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
industry. And even then, we work together with them because we don't want to be duplicitous on what we do, right?
Yeah.
And when people ask me, well, who is your biggest competitor right now? My answer is easy. It's Google, because everybody thinks they can get every answer off of Google. I guess now ChatGPT is going to be in that list, but
Sure.
people think that they can come up with every solution. What they don't realize is Google's great at coming up with 25 solutions to what might work for your problem.
Yeah.
They're not good at telling you what one or two would be actually very effective for your specific
Hmm.
issue.
Yeah.
So that's where the association does come into play, those relationships where you can pick up
Hmm.
the phone and save a lot of time, save a lot of money. You don't want to do a multi-million-dollar implementation on something that's just not going to work because it's not set up for your industry. So it is a kind of an interesting game of where the
Sure.
association is. I like to think we're one big Switzerland, and what we're trying to do is just make some good chocolate and some fine watches, and everyone's happy. But really, we got to keep coming up with what those solutions are, because if we
Yeah.
don't, Google might wind up winning.
It might. It just might take you out there, but I sincerely doubt it. So kind of wrapping this up and thinking more again about your career. Getting kind of pulled into this trade association and saying, "Hey, you get to build the website." No clue what you're doing, and no clue what it is. How do we get young people? I know there's a lot of folks working on, trying to make distribution more attractive. And we do have distribution schools around A&M, Purdue, Eastern Carolina, some of the others out there. But how do we get people interested in association management? Because I think it's been a great career for you. I've met several of your colleagues out there that it's been a great run for them. I mean, a really great run. How do you say this is actually a really good gig?
I don't know if association management is really where you're trying to get people. To me,
Okay.
where you're trying to get people is more back into the trades a little bit.
Fair enough. Yeah.
When you look at, where you make money, I asked my son who is taking a pre-med path, like,
Hmm.
why do you want to be a doctor? Because
Hmm.
I'm really hoping it's because you really want to help people, heal people. And it's not because, statistically you make a lot of money, right? And he's like, yeah, no, I definitely like kids and I want to work with kids and everything. And I'm like, well, that's good because if you want to make money, this is my opinion. Go into the trades, get really good at doing what you can do. Work with your hands, work with something that's not replaceable by technology, and then call people back. If you could just do that, you'll have business, right? Just call them back because half the time people don't call you back, right? And then you start your own business, then you start your own 3 businesses, and soon enough you'll have like 5 businesses or locations somewhere, and you'll be very successful. That's the path. That's a good path to success. And ultimately, whether you absolutely love your job or you absolutely hate your job, it's not as important as absolutely loving your family and the people who are around you. And you'd rather spend that time together with them and be in a position where you can do that. So ultimately, I think what you're trying to do is find people who are willing to work at something that can give them a long-term future. And if we can do that, we'll be in a much better spot.
Couldn't have said it any better. I am absolutely a fan of the trades, and I do hope that my children will at least consider that that path as well. So much easier than being a consultant. I don't know what we do for how do we contribute to the world? I'm not sure, but I can sure tell you what I know what an electrician does. So anyway,
everyone has a good role there. So
everybody does. That's very true. Edward, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been really great to catch up a little bit, but then learn a little bit more about the backstory as well.
Totally appreciate the opportunity there, Jason. And it's quite an honor to be in the presence of such famous people like Jason Bader and the Distribution Talk.
Sweet. Thank you. I will take that, man. That's good.
So thank you for the time.
All right, my friend. Looking forward to the next time our paths cross.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Impostor Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.